Now that you have all of your data in one central location and everything has been formatted to match the standard, this is where you get to do some analysis. So you actually get to look at your data schema and figure out how it's going to help with your model. So this is where you'll start to get some of those statistical insights. Like, what are your mins and maxes? What are the percentages of customers doing a certain thing? Or what is the number of images that have defects in them? These are the types of insights that you're going to start looking for, and you'll start bringing those back to the team to figure out what you want to do with the data going forward and how these decisions are going to impact your model, the things that you'll be looking for while you go through training, maybe even the metrics that you'll use to determine how well your model performs once you're in the testing and validation stage. So the more you can understand about the composition of your data, not just the raw values, it'll give you a better understanding of some of the business insight that you're looking for. It'll help you see some of the patterns that maybe customers or different manufactured parts go through. And one really important step in doing data analysis and starting to really understand that schema is to make some visualizations. Sometimes when you go through and you run all of these different formulas on your data, you get some numbers, and of course they're really meaningful and they tell a story in their own way. But having a picture to show everyone exactly what you mean can save so much time, and it can honestly bring in some extra understanding or insight that you might not have gotten just from looking at raw numbers. So let's take a quick look at an example of a data visualization with Matplotlib. So we're back in our example project, and this is a data visualization. So basically we have some random data. This part doesn't matter a whole lot. We do some type of normalization and we plot this to get different histograms. So if I go ahead and run this, you'll see, without even knowing what this data is, that there's some kind of relationship between these particular numbers. There's some maximum, there's a minimum, and there's this kind of distribution and the mean and the range and all of those different statistical values you can get just by looking at this picture. So when you're going through this process of analysis, don't be afraid to do little experiments like this to see what you're working with. And if you have unstructured data, like you're working with images or video or audio files, for example, just review a few of them. Actually look at the data you're working with. Listen to the data that you're working with. It will give you a better understanding not only of the data, but of the problem that you're trying to solve and why it's important. So if you have this unstructured data, just take some time to go through some of that data and see exactly what it looks like. And then as you do this data analysis, decide what data you can get rid of. All of the data that you extract and transform and load, some of it you might not even use at the end. But this analysis phase is going to help you further filter out that data through more of a business logic, data logic, statistical lens, so that you're left with just the data that is going to have an impact on your model. And then once you're finished with the whole data analysis phase, you should have a strong understanding of the data that made it through this part. So you and the team should understand why this data is important, why it's in the format it is, and where in our business problem that particular data fits in.